Have you ever felt like you have to be the most interesting person in the room just to make a good first impression? Well, what if I told you the real secret to breaking the ice is to do the exact opposite? Today, we're diving into a really powerful technique, how to build trust not by taking control, but by actually giving it away. Okay, let me ask you something. Think back to the last time you met someone totally new. What was your first move? Did you try to impress them? We all have that default setting, right? But what if that very strategy is actually pushing people away?
Yep, there it is. Our first instinct is to showcase our best stuff. We share our biggest achievements, we tell our best stories, and without even realizing it, we're shining this huge spotlight right on ourselves. I mean, it feels right, doesn't it? But it's actually a huge social misstep.
And this right here, this is the total game changer, the big shift in thinking. Instead of making it all about you, you make it all about them. Instead of trying to steer the conversation, you just hand them the wheel. See, the goal isn't to wow them, it's to build real trust right from the very beginning. This quote really gets to the heart of the psychology behind all this. Think about it. When we feel in control, we feel safe. And when we feel safe, that's when we're willing to open up, be a little more vulnerable. And that is the bedrock of any real connection.
Okay, so let's be super clear here. Ceding control doesn't mean you just become a doormat or get all passive. No way. It's actually a really strategic move to make the other person feel totally at ease. You're actively creating this space where they feel comfortable and where they feel understood. All right, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? Well, it's not nearly as complicated as it seems. In fact, there's a simple 3-step formula that you can start using, like, today.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about what's called dual line positioning. It's all about finding your place in their world. Then we'll get into showing genuine concern without being, creepy. And finally, we'll wrap up with how to actively cede control to really lock in that first connection. All right, let's dive in.
Okay, step 1. This is all about giving context. You know, when you meet someone new, their brain is scrambling to figure out who is this person? Where do they fit? Your job is just to make that process as easy as possible for them. So think of it like coordinates on a map. Your longitude is the basic stuff. Your name, what you do, simple. But the magic, the real connection, that happens on the latitude, finding that common ground. The 4 sames are a fantastic place to start. Maybe you went to the same school, grew up in the same area, have the same hobby, or even know the same person. This creates an instant, totally low-pressure bond. All right, once you've made that first connection, it's time to go from just being a position on their map to being a real person. And this is where you show that you're genuinely interested in them, not just making polite small talk.
But you got to be careful. There is a very fine line between showing genuine interest and just being intrusive. For example, noticing a book they're reading or a piece of art in their office. That shows you're observant and paying attention to their world. But commenting on their private life, like where you saw them with their kids or at the grocery store, that can make them feel watched and their guard goes right up. It's a subtle difference, but it's absolutely crucial. And that brings us to our final step, the one that ties it all together. Actively ceding control. This is how you solidify the connection and really make a lasting impression. It's all about giving them a small gift, a piece of the interaction. And you can do this on 3 different levels. A lightweight move could be something as simple as when you text them your contact info. Add a few extra words so it's searchable for them later. A medium gesture? That's just following through on a promise, like, hey, here's that link I mentioned. And the heavyweight gesture? That's when you share a small piece of insider info, like a recommendation for a hidden gem of a restaurant. It's a real signal of trust. Okay, so we've got the theory down, but what does this look like in the wild when it's being done by a true master of the craft? Let's break down a technique used by a CEO who is legendary for their networking skills. So this CEO has this simple but absolutely brilliant method for turning something as boring as a contact exchange into this really memorable moment of connection. Honestly, it's a masterclass in ceding control. It's a really slick 2-part move. First, they ask to take a photo with a new contact. Then, right there in front of them, they save it to their contact notes and say something like, "This way, I'll never forget how we met." Wow, that small act of care is just incredibly powerful. Then they follow up with a sincere invitation to keep the conversation going. And that photo, it's proof that the invitation is real, not just some empty gesture. And that really brings us to the key takeaway here.
Breaking the ice isn't a one-and-done thing. It's not a transaction. It's the first step. It's the beginning of a relationship. But hey, even the absolute best first impression can just fade away. That's why there's one last crucial piece to this whole puzzle, the 24-hour rule. You see, our brains are just wired to forget things. So to make that new connection actually stick, you need to gently interrupt that forgetting process. A simple, no-pressure follow-up within 24 hours can make all the difference. We're talking a quick text referencing your chat, or even just a thoughtful comment on something they posted online. Super simple. So, let's bring this all home. What's the most crucial point? It's that the goal of a first meeting, it isn't to win. It's not a competition to see who's the most interesting person. No, the real goal is to lay a foundation of trust by making the other person feel secure, respected, and in control from the very first moment. You're setting the stage for a genuine, lasting connection.
So, the next time you meet someone new, think of it like a game. The only question is, who are you going to let win?